first of all, K.C. Jones has gotten most of these players. Gary Payton's a rookie. Benjamin coming over the middle of the year. Eddie Johnson, Ricky Pierce. He's having a difficult time trying to piece this thing together, understandably, and he might have too much talent there.
Yeah, Pete Van Weeren and Doug Collins are going to call that for us. Let's go to Doug Collins now in Portland. Doug?
Thanks, Ernie. I'm with Terry Porter. Terry, a quiet game offensively for you the other night, but you only took 7 shots. A lot of the defensive pressure from Seattle is to try to double the ball, take it out of your hands, and get it into the hands of the other people. Any adjustments that you guys made in yesterday's practice?
Well, I think we're definitely going to try to do some different things and try to make our pace of the game a little bit quicker. Maybe I pass the ball a little bit sooner. Some guys cutting through the middle when they try to trap me in the backcourt. But, you know, they did a good job of doing that, having 2 guys back there double-teaming me, not allowing me to push the ball up the court the type of tempo we want. So, you know, we definitely want to make some adjustments, and I think we did them yesterday.
You know, it's an interesting matchup when you talk about Seattle. Their 2 best offensive players, Eddie Johnson and Ricky Pierce, also have to play basically 2 of your better offensive players, Jerome Kersey and Drexler. The other night you guys got the benefit of that matchup. Do you see that happening again tonight?
Well, I think it's going to happen again. I think both guys are really going to gear on, you know, Clyde and Jerome. But, you know, an important thing for us is just to maintain our poise and continue good ball movement. I think if we eliminate them getting a lot of easy opportunities and eliminate their second offensive rebounds and we get out in open court, it's definitely going to be tough for them to beat us here.
Okay, Ernie, I'm with Terry Porter here, one of the finest point guards out here in the West. Back to you and Matt in the studio.
Thank you very much, Doug. We will check you again later in Portland. And coming up,
Hello again, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Portland's Memorial Coliseum on this Sunday night as the Portland Trailblazers meet the Seattle Supersonics in Game 2 of this Western Conference opening playoff round. Portland winning the opener 2 nights ago, 110-102. Again, a special playoff edition of the NBA Report. Very shortly, Steve Jones will be in, and we'll catch you up to date on NBA playoff action today and his insight. We'll talk to John Wetzel. Mike Rice will ask him about Game 1 in this series, and we'll look ahead to the balance of the series. We'll take a look at a young man for Seattle that some think by the end of the decade might be rated as one of the 10 best players in this league, and that is Shawn Kemp. We will be joined by Bill Walton, who is in town today for this ball game, and we'll chat with him about the NBA playoffs and about Portland and Seattle in particular. So it promises to be an entertaining half hour. And right now, let's bring in our expert analyst, Steve Jones. And Steve, let's talk about the 3 playoff games today besides this one, and start off with what may be termed revenge of the Pistons.
Well, I don't know if it can be termed that, but certainly they're in a desperate position. You know, they were expected to hold serve at home, and right away they get the home court advantage snatched away from them by a team that is as fragile psychologically as any in the league. They gave them a big shot in the arm when they allowed them to win the first game. The Pistons, to a man, say, well, they always win, they have to win, and they are ahead right now in the ball game, and they are looking to get out of there and win that ball game and then go down and probably take the first game in Atlanta. If Atlanta somehow can get the first game, they may be able to pull off an upset.
You've often talked about Atlanta's fragile psychology. Are they stable and steady enough to find a way to win this thing?
Well, they're good enough, you know, and they're one of those kinds of teams that's front running. And in tough situations, that's when they cave in. And certainly at home, they're going to have a better chance of winning than they would out on the road. And so when they went in and won that first game, they gave themselves a big boost. Now, they'll go back to the Omni and they'll think that they really have a shot at winning. And depending on how the first game goes, and this is a good offensive unit at home, they could put a lot of heat on the Pistons. And if they get the first game, they will undoubtedly come out the winner.
The first game today was Chicago and Boston. It was the Chuck Person show, and it was something to watch.
Well, the Riflemen were definitely on this afternoon. 5 of 5 for three-point range in the first ball game. Ended up with an NBA record 7. Vernon Maxwell got in the books yesterday. He snatched him out of it this afternoon. 39 points, led 7 players in double figures for the Pacers. Now, the Boston The Celtics had 5 players in double figures. Bird had 18, and a good hustling effort, but they did something they haven't been able to do, and that was win in Boston Garden. Now they go back to Market Square, where the Celtics have had a little bit of a collar on them, and it'll be interesting to see the psychological approach for them in Game 3. Now, if they get loose, like the Trailblazers got loose in terms of mentality, then they could end up giving away a huge advantage. They come in there and play tough and hard, because the one thing that the Celtics can't take, and that's pace. And they ran, and they've got to do that plus score the ball.
New York got Chicago to their pace today as we take a look very shortly at the Eastern Conference bracket, but it was still the Bulls that ended up on top and won by 10.
Well, you remember, as we take a look at that bracket, what happened to us last Friday night. Power shortage. Well, that's what's wrong with the New York Knicks. They do not have enough firepower, and whenever the game gets tight, it gets crucial. It's a very predictable team. Ewing could not deliver in the second half of that ball game, and it was costly for them. So in a close, tight ball game, the Bulls have more weapons. They have more ways to beat them, and the Knicks are a team just on the edge of disaster, and they can't wait till the season gets over so they can avoid it.
Any of last night's games that warrant special comment? Anything that jumped off the sports pages for you this morning?
Milwaukee, Philadelphia. Philadelphia hurting, and particularly down the stretch with Barkley being out. And even though he comes back with the knee brace and everything else like that, you expect it to be a better series for the Milwaukee Bucks at home. And somehow they get 2 snatched away from them, and now they go back to Philadelphia where they're looking at sudden death. And I think that Philadelphia is going to prevail on that, and I thought that would be a 5-game series.
Golden State becoming a bit of a story as they beat San Antonio. The Lakers still better than Houston.
Well, you know, when you look at the West and you look at San Antonio, Don Nelson always at least comes up with some sort of game plan that bothers opponents. And he came in with that small unit, and he opened up the floor, and we know that the San Antonio Spurs are a poor perimeter team. He got them to play up and down and shoot the ball quickly, and took advantage of it. They had no Sean Elliott. They've got a couple of days to get him back. Should be interesting. Nelson thinks it's going to be a 5-game series. He's already said they'll probably win a game, and we'll have to come back to San Antonio.
And if there's one series you can probably bet on going 5 days, it may well be the one between Utah and Phoenix.
You know, Cotton said after the massacre, I promise we'll win Game 2. They won it, but still, they're under the gun. The Jazz are going home, and I think that the 3rd game is the crucial game in this series. Whoever wins this will win the series. And I know that Jerry Sloan wants his team to win this and get that collar of psychological pressure off his back.
Later in the NBA report, we'll be back to get your comments on Game 1, Portland and Seattle. Let's find out how you score in the first of our 3 trivia questions, and we'll give it to you now as the NBA report continues. On Friday night, the Portland Trailblazers won Game 1 of this best-of-5 series and proved they not only were an outstanding ball club, but that their game plan had also been very solid. Earlier today, Trailblazer radio analyst Mike Rice sat down with Blazer assistant coach John Wetzel and looked back at that game and looked ahead to Game 2.
Coach, before we get into Seattle, how do you look at the rest of the playoffs? Do you watch as a fan, or do you take notes, maybe a team to play in the future? Are there any surprises, Utah, etc.?
Well, I think the Phoenix-Utah series, naturally, you're surprised to see Utah win by 39 points in Phoenix. The fact that they won is not a surprise. Utah is a very good team, and I watched the game yesterday. I really don't take notes right now because we have each game taped. We'll have them, and Dan Burke is putting together a highlight tape, offensive tape, and defensive tape. So we will have all that done. And so I watched the game kind of as a fan, but more interested because we're going to be playing one of those 2 teams if we get through this first series. And so quite naturally, there's an additional interest in that particular series. I've also watched some of the other games, too, and was a little bit surprised that Golden State was able to win the way they did yesterday in San Antonio. But it's interesting. This time of the year is a fun time of the year, and each game has more significance, and so I think you watch it with a little more intensity.
You know, this is my first year in the NBA, and they always say the veterans really come alive during the playoffs. I watched Larry Bird with his back, Isaiah Thomas with his wrist, I heard Jerome Kersey played with a broken nose a couple of years ago. And then I watched Sean Elliott get a broken nose yesterday and left immediately. Is it the time of the year for the veterans, the playoffs?
I think so, especially the veterans who have been there. They understand the significance of it. This is what we play for all year, and to say that I can't play a game because I'm hurt or I have a broken nose or a Charlie horse or a jam finger, they have no excuses at this time of the year, because you have nothing else to play for. If you don't win the series that you're in, then you go home. So knowing the significance of the games, the veteran players step forward, and the ones that are really good really take over, and they make sure that their team does not lose, and they don't want any excuses, because if you have a lot of excuses lined up, generally you're going to be going home early.
Getting to Seattle, both teams seem really well prepared for each other. They knew each other's offenses and everything. Can Seattle play as hard? They're young. Is that their problem? Maybe consistency? Can they play as hard 2 games in a row?
I think so. I think so, especially this time of year, Mike. You have a day off between every game. You're not going to play back-to-back games. So you may see Seattle come out tonight and do exactly the same thing, press all over, throw some traps out at us, and you may see from all the teams in the playoffs, the starters and the top 5 or 6 players playing more minutes because of that day of rest in between, and sometimes 2 days in between. And you know, it's not going to be unusual to see some players playing over 40 minutes throughout the playoffs.
Must have a good feeling as a coach to watch them do so much with Porter, trap him, try to get the ball out of his hands, press him full court to tire him out, and yet the Blazers seem to be, didn't miss a beat getting into their offense.
Yeah, we didn't. We really expected what they threw at us. We had talked about it. We walked through some things, and, you know, I think their whole defensive concept is to get you out of what you want to do, to take you out of your comfort zone. They always try to get the ball out of the point guard's hand and make somebody else initiate the offense. And we knew that, so we at times handled it pretty well. At times we're a little bit hesitant. You know, I think in overall, Buck did a pretty good job when he was out on the floor, and a couple of times had a chance to go to the basket, didn't, which is okay. That's not a comfort zone for him. But you know, we know what they're going to do, and we think that we have the answers. And it's just a matter of our players being patient, seeing the floor, and seeing who's open and moving the basketball.
You mentioned different things they do, fronting the post. Now, you don't see that too often in the NBA. A lot of times in college they have guys, but with the alley-oop pass and the dunk, it's so difficult. Can they get away with this, fronting the post as much as they did the first game?
Well, one of the things that we didn't do is that we don't think our players space the floor as well on the weak side. So, you know, those are some things that we have talked about. What they do by playing the defense the way they do, a couple of things. First of all, they try to get you to use some of the clock in the backcourt. They slow the ball down where you're a little bit hesitant to bring it up, and they trap you, then they back off. And then second of all, when they front the low post, they force you to make 1 or 2 extra passes to find that open low post player. And teams that are not real patient, or teams that are a little bit jittery with the ball, can't do that. And we just have to show that patience and move the ball and space the floor, and it should not be a problem for us. And but they're banking on the fact that they're going to have that 24-second clock working for them.
Now, going into a second game, does it depend on the team, or generally do you look more to help your offense out the second night or your defense?
I think we talk more about what we want to do defensively. We walked through some things that they did that hurt us. Eddie Johnson, Ricky Pierce, a couple of plays that they had in their offense that we didn't cover very well. We reviewed those. We walked through them on the floor with the players. And I think generally if the team that defends the best night after night will be the team that wins, because we think that we have enough offensive firepower that we can get points from wherever we need them, you know, as evidenced by the first game. Jerome and Clyde had the big games, even though Terry didn't. So we think we have enough firepower, but it's just a matter of us finding the keys defensively and how to stop them.
You know, you mentioned firepower, but everybody talked about Clyde's offensive game, but I thought he just did a marvelous job on Ricky Pierce.
Yeah, Clyde Drexler is is a phenomenal athlete, and at times when he defends his man, he is without a doubt one of the better defenders in the league, and he can do those things because he's 6'7", he's strong, he's quick, and a lot of times he just overpowers the players that he plays against, especially the smaller off guards that he plays against, and he can defend very, very well.
Talk a little bit about the bench. Now, is it tougher on the bench when they have guys like Ricky Pierce and McKee coming off that are good, solid players, probably a little almost better than their starters? Does it make it tough on the second unit of the Blazers?
Well, we have to be able to defend those people. You take Ricky Pierce, he's a 20-point per game scorer off the bench, and so whoever plays him off the bench has to be ready to do a very good job defensively. And Derek McKee has been a starter for much of his career. Now he's coming off the bench and gives him another experienced player. So our players off the bench, we think, are pretty good. You know, in particular, Cliff and Danny, who are playing the bulk of the minutes. Now Walter's playing a little more, and so he's in that category. He's a veteran player, but they have to be ready. And if we don't defend, then the other team now, especially Seattle, with those offensive players, will take advantage of that because their second unit is a very good offensive unit.
Talk about Porter a little bit. Can they spend as much time trying to do the things they are doing and letting Clyde go a little bit and everything? Do you think they'll come back with that same alignment and maybe keep Treat on Porter, or do you think they'll make some changes there?
I don't know. I think it depends on how the game goes. I would suspect they will start the game with their same matchups, and then depending on how the game goes, they make some adjustments. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see Nate McMillan guard Clyde some because of his size. He probably has the best defensive chance to stop Clyde because he's 6'6" and has those long arms. So I think they're going to be aggressive. They've played that way all year. I don't think that we're going to see any major adjustments from them.
They do a great job on the offensive rebounds, and I thought the Blazers, just as they had all season, really rebounded well. Is there a key like that going into this game? If you had one area that you really wanted to look good in, what would it be?
Well, I think you mentioned offensive rebounding. They were the best team in the league. Sean Kemp is a great offensive rebounder. McKee off the bench is. So they really, if we can eliminate those second and third shots, because teams, if you give them two shots, generally they shoot about 48, 49%. They're going to make that second shot. If we can eliminate, you know, the bulk of those and get the defensive rebound and get out and initiate our fast break from those, certainly it's going to help us win. If we let them get the second and third shots, make the basket, now we're taking the ball in from out of bounds, it slows us down. So it's defensive rebounding for us, Mike, the way we play is very, very important.
Last question. It is exciting for the fans, but the playoffs, it really gets exciting for the coaches.
It really, yeah, it does. This is a time of year that we all work for. You know, we all as players and coaches want to win a championship. We've been close. As a player, I was on a team that went to the finals twice. And as a coach a year ago, we went to the finals, and I have not won a championship. And I think all of us are genuinely excited by it. There's a certain electricity in the air this time of the year, and it's really a fun 2-3 month period here that we hope will ultimately lead us to a championship.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Everybody talks about how difficult the transition is to go from college to the NBA. If you've watched Seattle's Gary Payton make the transition from Oregon State to the Sonics, you know exactly how true that is. Imagine then the transition of going from high school to pro basketball. There's only one player active who's done that. He's Seattle's forward, Sean Kemp. Let's take a look.
He began at a young age.
Look at that talent. Rebound, handle the rock. Look at him handle it. Look at this kid. Are you serious? Are you for real? That's a superstar potential.
Away from 7-foot Spreck. Gives to Johnson. Over to Kemp. Oh! Oh, what a thundering reverse. Baby cradle right-handed jam.
Seattle's Sean Kemp was one of 5 players to enter the NBA directly out of high school. The second-year pro has a clear outlook about NBA life.
I think the guys that come out early are a little bit surprised at the talent. You know, you got your Michael one night and your Magic the next night, and that's kind of hard to face when you're just coming out of high school.
What I see is a guy who has great talent, and he has a great penchant for blocking shots, for rebounding.
Kemp gets the rebound, stops it.
He's working on his outside jumper. He's working on moves down low. It's kind of like, you know, a storm out there, you know, that's untamed.
Kemp has lit up the league with his ability to dunk. Perhaps his shining moment came last season in Madison Square Garden when he nearly tore down the basket. The youngster had made his mark.
I had just got my fifth foul right before that dunk, and I was a little bit upset because I thought I was getting some bad calls, and I just needed some way to show my anger out. And I think so far that's probably my best dunk of my career.
At All-Star Weekend last season, Shawn Kemp displayed his dunking ability nationwide. The eyes of the NBA were on the rookie. He did not disappoint.
I caught him off guard a little bit last year, and the dunks I used to create last year really wasn't that tough, I don't think, just because I didn't prepare myself like I should have. This year, you know, I think I'll have a better chance of winning it.
Shawn Kemp dazzled the fans in Charlotte this year. But more importantly, his value to the Sonics has grown as fast as he has. Only 21, he is living a dream kids can read about. He is still a kid himself, but now plays with the big boys.
That was saxophonist Dennis Springer with our national anthem, an impressive rendition, and welcome back to Portland's Memorial Coliseum. You see the final remnants of what will be a sellout crowd gathering tonight, and both teams on the floor, the Portland Trailblazers and the Seattle Supersonics. Steve Jones and I are here now, and we are joined by one of the greatest players in the history of this game at both the collegiate and professional level, Bill Walton. And Bill, it's nice to have you back. You thought I was going to introduce
I thought you were
Steve.
going to say Steve Jones was the greatest player.
He probably should have said that. And, you know, he would have been on top of it.
People don't realize the important role that Steve Jones played in that great championship team we had back in the mid-'70s, mid to late '70s. He wasn't on the team, but he gave great leadance and guidership to myself, Bob Gross, and Lionel Hollins. We'll never forget it.
That's right, molding the young rookies. You know, he wasn't a rookie, but he may as well have been, because that was really the season before he was starting to get to play, and he had a lot of injuries, and dealing with the injuries was always a problem for him. And once he finally got healthy, he really got a chance to set the record straight on the kind of basketball he could play. Unfortunately, you know, you should talk to your mom and dad about the material that they gave you, because you got the worst material of all of your brothers. Hey, you know, it's a bad deal you got.
Say anything bad you want about me, Steve, but don't talk bad about my mom and dad on the air.
Speaking of playing with injuries, the Seattle Supersonics will play tonight without Derek McKee, the ankle sprain. So let me ask the two of you, thoughts on how Seattle will play now without him coming off the bench. Bill?
Seattle looks very focused to me. I was talking to Casey Jones before the game, and he felt very badly about their team's performance down the stretch. They came back late in game one, had a chance to win it, but turned the ball over too many times. I don't think McKee's absence will make that much difference.
Steve?
Well, you know, I've always thought that McKee is a huge player for them. The problem is that they now will have to go someplace else to get his contribution with rebounding, passing, and scoring. It'll be interesting to see how Casey does it. You can see with this team, the elements are there for greatness in a year or two. They're playing a team that has command of their game. They're trying to get command of their game, and anytime you lose an important, I always disagree with him. You're going to struggle. So they're going to struggle tonight. It's going to be a harder game for them. One of the things that Portland will undoubtedly do better is handle the pressure. And we're going to see a variety of types of pressure from them, and we'll see if Portland takes better care of the ball and takes advantage of the mismatches.
I think that Seattle is a team that is surging and coming together. They didn't play that good during the course of the season. They're just learning each other. I think they're going to come together and play a very good basketball game tonight.
Well, Bill, let's take this right into the middle and ask you about the matchup at the post. What more does Benoit Benjamin have to do in order to make Seattle a better ball club? Because he didn't really step forward with a big game in Game 1.
Well, that's been the nature of his career. I mean, Benoit Benjamin is Mr. Inconsistent, particularly in his effort. He's just not that solid of a basketball player day in and day out. He can come up with a game, though, where he can dominate anybody. Duckworth, on the other hand, has played very consistently all season long. He had a good rebounding game. Neither center got a lot of shots in the first game. So I would think if I was coaching this game, I'd try to pound the ball inside for shots from my big man right away.
Noted.
Yes.
Spoken like a big man. I want to pound it inside.
I want the ball. Give it to me.
Casey Jones is going to do that. He's going to try to give Benjamin some more opportunities to score inside and see if he can get it done. You know, and if he gets off to a good start, that's certainly going to elevate his entire game. He'll probably do a better job of rebounding or also blocking shots. Duckworth, on the other hand, doesn't have to score as much to be a factor for the Trailblazers, but I'm sure Adelman will give him some chances as well.
The game really was decided on the perimeter. Sensational performance by Clyde Drexler with 39, and Jerome Kersey complimented with a very strong 31.
You're greeted with silence. We both agree on that. I think really the key for this game for Portland tonight is Terry Porter. If Porter can get jump-started and handle the aggressiveness of the guards that they're going to throw at him, then Portland will have a much easier time of it than they had in game number 1. Should he struggle in trying to find his offense and trying to get people to basketball in their effective areas, then the team is going to have a problem. You know, the Sonics got very good play out of their guards, perhaps the most consistent they've had all year long, with Threet and Payton playing under control, not turning the ball over until a critical stage of the game. In other games that we've seen them play, they've tossed it around like a piece of cheese, but had a lot of holes in it. It's cost them.
Bill, a moment ago we had a feature on Sean Kemp, a very talented young man, still just 21 in his second season. How big do you think Sean Kemp can be in this league?
I think the biggest problem for Sean Kemp is that he lacks fundamental skills, so that when he plays against a player who's very solid in his fundamental defense and can force him into improper footwork out there, Sean Kemp, who has relied almost his entire career, as short as it has been, he relies on his physical abilities too much. And in the playoffs, when you've got great coaching, great intensity on defense, and great position and great focus on the task at hand, you just have a real situation where a guy can play poorly.
Are your numbers hanging up there? And
they told me beforehand they took that down.
They just put it up.
As much trouble as they had getting it up there, they're not going to snatch it down, but it's a well-deserved honor, and certainly the Trailblazers are hoping to get a championship banner up there, and we should talk about that. You've seen varying stages of the NBA season. What does it take for Portland to win it all this year?
Well, they have to stay healthy, for one thing. That's the big key for any team to win the championship. Plus, I think that they really need to get the great leadership. The problem that I've had with the Trailblazers in jumping on their bandwagon, a lot of players have jumped on their wagon this year, is that they don't have the guy who steps forward right at the end and says, hey, give it to me, I'll get it done. The way we could go to Maurice Lucas with our championship team, or Lionel Hollins, the great clutch players who would demand the ball, not give it up. You were that way. You just couldn't get it done in the championship game. But Drexler, I think, has got to be that player for the Trailblazers. They don't have a solid post-up game, I think. I think that Duckworth and Williams are very good basketball players. They're not offensive machines, guys who you can pound it inside to in a championship game. Drexler is the man.
And all I can tell you is, with a couple of analysts like this, it makes the play-by-play announcer's job awfully easy. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Pat. I wanted to know if my picture is on Steve's tie. I see he's got Larry Bird on there. Who else? You got Bill Russell.
32. No, my own number's on there. 23.
That's Michael Jordan. That's not you. You got Larry Bird, Bill Russell. Where's Wilt?
That's going to be another trivia question another time. Here's the answer to the last question we asked. That's tonight's NBA report. Stay with us. The starting lineups and play-by-play action is coming right up.
106. They take a commanding 2-0 lead in this best-of-5 series, but Bill Walton, once again, it was a struggle with Seattle.
Well, Blazer Mania was just out in full force tonight, Rick. The girls were dancing, the signs were being waved in the crowd, and the Blazer defense really got the transition game going, and they really had the running game going. Drexler was driving and stealing the ball. Ainge was bombing in the three-pointers. Cliff Robinson actually changed his headband. He went from the black headband to the red one. I think that sort of opened his game up a little bit. Me being an old headband guy myself, you know, I sort of noticed things like that. Seattle, on the other hand, they didn't have much of anything. Slow starts, big men did nothing. They had good performances out of some of their players, particularly Eddie Johnson. Ricky Pierce had his moments, but the point guards didn't get it done, and certainly nothing out of the big men, particularly Benoit Benjamin and Michael Cage.
That's right. The Blazers, of course, picked by a lot of people to win the NBA championship. Nothing to discount that theory right now as they move perhaps to a sweep Tuesday night. Now, courtside, watching all the hits, the runs, the blows, the dunks, the slams, and the turnovers, was Ed Whalen with the highlights. Ed?
Yeah, partners, the band Perfect 10 provided the jams on the outside of the Coliseum. And the Blazers provided them inside. Now just sit back and relax. We're going to let this big train roll. Buck Williams shoots over Sean Kemp in the first stanza. 16-8 Blazers. Then Drexler passed that biscuit from the parking lot to Terry Porter. The Blazers led 29-24 after one. But the Sonics went on the run in the second. Sean Kemp slam dunk. The Blazers' lead was 31-28. Then Eddie Johnson shot three. And suddenly, the Blazers went down 35-31. But the Blazers came back like your in-laws. Dribbling the basketball, Drexler outran the entire Sonics team. He told me he ran a 4.340 in college. Then Drexler shot three, and Portland led this baby 53-49 at recess. Third stanza, Drexler to Buck Williams. Three-point play, 75-63 Portland after a Seattle technical. The shot of the quarter belonged to man-child Kemp, but this only cut Portland's lead to 75-64. Seattle had another run, but check out the pass. Cliff Robinson to the glide. Oh, baby! That one had Neil Goldsmith shaking it. Portland laid the D on the Sonics in the fourth. Clyde Drexler with a block, and then Cliff Robinson with another block to slow and demoralize Seattle. And what hustle by Robinson. He was on that ball like a big-mouth bass after a bullfrog. Now, wait a minute. Are they Cliff Robinson's mom and dad? No, the headbands confuse me. Danny Ainge closed the show, hitting three-pointers in the fourth stanza, and it was time to put the papers on the floor and call the puppy in the house. Portland stomped Seattle, 115-106.
Tuesday is going to be an important game, and we would like to see if we can't finish it Tuesday. We know they're going to come out very tough. They're going to be fired up. They're going to be playing at home. But I think the way we're playing now, we got a pretty good flow. We're getting a little bit better at trying to recognize some things, so hopefully we'll respond on Tuesday.
Well, I thought that we dominated the boards tonight and really came through in the stretch.
Sound like your dad.
Like I said in game one, we expect a tough game from that team, and now we've been getting exactly what we've expected.
I don't like playing against these guys. They play extremely hard, and you know, we might have beat them 4 times in the regular season, but those 4 games weren't easy. They really took us down to the wire.
That's just locker room talk. I think Cliff Robinson's being polite because he thinks the Sonics may be listening to his remarks. Here's what it's going to be right here. Broom time, baby. I think the Blazers will sweep the Sonics during the regular season and the postseason as well. Ed Whalen, Newsroom 6 Sports.
Okay, the final again, 115-106. And at last report, Ed was still back at the Coliseum with that broom. I think they put him to work, and it may be necessary to bring it out on Tuesday, too.
Well, it's easy for Ed to say that, but I'm sure you'll never find any of the Blazers or anybody who's got to play in the game say that.
Now, you talked to some of the Sonics after the contest. What's their mood right now?
They're very down right now, Rick. They tried very hard to get into something early. They tried to go inside to Benjamin and Cage, and McKee, who wasn't able to play, that really hurt them. But Sean Kemp was also a factor early on. But they couldn't get the ball. Their post passing was very bad. Their turnovers hurt them very much. And then their outside shooting, with the exception of Eddie Johnson, just could never get it done. But I was talking to them about a lot of things, and Casey Jones started off with a poor assessment of his team's play.
All right.
Casey Jones, the game didn't go that well for you tonight, particularly late in the game, as well as the start of the first half, the start of the second half. What do you need to do to get this team going to win a game up in Seattle and hopefully win this series for the Sonics?
Yeah. Well, what we have to do is take better care of the ball. We have been awful in that all year when we've had good chances. We've been up by 20 points. We've been down by 20 and catch up, and then in crunch time, such as tonight in the fourth quarter, we will turn it over or make poor decisions on shots and passes.
Casey, it seemed that the Blazers were pushing your big men underneath the hoop on the defensive end, which created a lot of second shot opportunities for the Trailblazers.
Yeah.
Aren't you giving them the old?
Well, yes, I've been trying to do that. Now, well, the secret to that is do what they do to you.
Eddie Johnson, you had a few good runs tonight, but you never really get over the hump. What was the problem in trying to take control of this ball game?
I think just too much Portland. You know, to be honest with you, every time we make a run at these guys, they seem to do a little extra to repel our attack.
Ricky, you didn't have that many opportunities at the hoop tonight. Can you explain your difficulties out there?
Well, they're doing a terrific job of denying me the ball. They're not giving me any air, you know. We just have to concentrate more on setting picks and getting me open and getting our big guys to working inside, and maybe that'll open our outside game up.
Okay, rebounding, Casey Jones says, is the key. Now, from a technical aspect, how does that look on the board?
Rick, when you teach rebounding in basketball, the most important thing is to not get too close underneath the basket, and that's what's really happening to the Sonics. Again, when you teach basketball, you take this dotted line and you flip it over. And you have an arc in here around the basket is right here. As a defensive player, you never want to be inside this arc when the shot is taken. Seattle's defense is getting pushed underneath here, and they're trying to get the rebound straight up in the air. They need to put defensive pressure on the Portland perimeter players, the Ainges, the Drexlers, and then when they take the tough shots, the Seattle players have to be outside of this arc and then move to the basket and attack the rebound. We have videotape of that in action.
Okay, a perfect example there, Bill, and as you mentioned, it made a big difference in the contest, too, because every time the Sonics apparently were getting close, the Blazers turned it up a notch, and rebounding was a key.
Well, the Blazers really had control of this game from start to finish. The Sonics have to start the games better. They were very sloppy at the start of the game, fell behind by 10, came back, but they never could really get over the hump. They had their moments, they had their surges, but the Blazers, when they wanted to turn it on, could do it almost at will.
All right, we'll talk about what's going to happen in Game 3 also, the day in the NBA, when we come back right after this. Highlights from this morning. In Game 1, the champs looked like chumps for a while. They were after an opportunity to change that today. James Edwards slams that baby. It was 22-18 Pistons after one. Red hot in the first encounter. Atlanta went as cold as shave ice in this one. Shot won't go. John Sally ahead to a streaky Mark Aguirre. 25-18 Pistons. Cough drop time moments later. Spud Webb coughs it up. Aguirre will drop it in off the break, and it was 38-26. By the time Aguirre did a repeat performance late in the first half, the champions led it 47-36 at the midpoint. They clinch it in the third as Joe Dumars lights them up. 2 off the glass to up the ante to 16. And then J.D. completes his 28-point performance on the drive. Detroit evens the series with a convincing 101-88 win. Dennis Rodman adds 16 boards for the champs, who journey to Atlanta now for Game 3 on Tuesday. The Boston Celtics at the Boston Garden today looking to go 2-up on that series. That was not the case. The Indiana Pacers do it tonight as Chuck Person scores 39 points. The Pacers over the Celtics 130-116. Chicago is everyone's favorite in the East. They certainly have done little to change that feeling. They are now 2-0 against the New York Knicks. At least the Knicks showed up today, but still, Chicago comes up with the win. The final on that one was 89-79. Okay, let's take a look at games coming up on Tuesday night in the National Basketball Association. First of all, the Lakers head to Texas looking to finish off the Rockets. Phoenix is at Utah. The Jazz now have home court advantage. Chicago should have an easy time sending the Knicks on vacation. Detroit takes on the Hawks at the Omni. Now that series is tied up. Philadelphia is looking to close things out at home against the Bucks. And the Blazers head to the Queen City to try and sweep the Sonics. Game time here on Channel 6 will be at 7 o'clock. And of course, the Blazers looking for a sweep. The Sonics trying to get back in this one. Bill, what are the keys to victory for Seattle coming in on Tuesday night?
I think the biggest thing they have to do is come out ready to play right at the start. They cannot fall behind. They've got to get the crowd into it right away. One thing the Blazers will try to do is to negate that is get out to their own quick start themselves. Seattle cannot turn the ball over, and they've got to get control of the backboards. Also, what they have to do is get a lot better play out of the front line guys, the Benoit Benjamins, the Michael Cage, the Sean Kemps, hopefully Derek McKee. Now, for Portland, they don't want to fix what's not broken. They're playing great basketball. They've had 18 victories in their last 19 games. Coach Adelman, let them play. Just let them keep running, and it's going to keep going for them. Also, what's got to happen for Portland, if they're going to continue to win, is pressure Seattle's guards, because Seattle's guards can make it happen and get the big guys involved, but with the good pressure defense by Portland, I think that Portland can sweep this series.
All right, Rick, if you're out there listening, I know you are, listen to Bill. Just keep it going on Tuesday night. We'll be back with the highlights, of course, that evening. Now let's go back to the newsroom.
Sweep of Seattle out of the playoffs. The Blazers departed for Seattle late this afternoon, looking to wrap up Game 3 tomorrow. It's on Channel 6 at 7. And expected to be as rough as sandpaper as the Sonics will attempt to muscle the Trail Blazers.
I think they've done a lot of talking about trying to go inside more, and I think they're going to try to do that and try to keep us from in there too. But with their type of team, it's all the switching they do. They don't do a lot of that. You know, they do so much switching that they're trying to rely on trying to take you out of your game rather than be physical. So I think that's a big reason for it. But I think they'll really try to go inside.
The team will not say it on camera, fearing their remarks would inspire the Sonics, but the Blazers expect to pull off the sweep. Meanwhile, the Phoenix Suns are crying the blues like the great...
The Blazers can come home and rest a while before moving on to round 2 of the NBA playoffs. Eric Johnson is in
Seattle today. The Blazers had a light workout at the Coliseum, the theme of which, according to Terry Porter, was think, think, think.
Well, that's what we want to do. You know, I think it's important that we play a consistent game tomorrow. They're going to come at us very hard, very strong, and we'll have the crowd behind them. And I think, you know, we would like to go up there and just be consistent.
Tomorrow night here at the Seattle Coliseum, Supersonic fans are going to try to help their team get over a hump they haven't been able to get over all season long.
I think we went a little bit too much one-on-one in certain parts of the game. And, you know, they were sitting there waiting on us. Either we forced the shots or we turned the ball over. Or... Well, you know, right now is at the point that, in a sense, like they own us. You know, we haven't beaten them the whole season, lost 4 regular season games, then 2 playoffs games. And I know they're coming in here looking to try and end it tomorrow night. And we definitely don't want to get swept.
One sidelight of interest, a rather poorly written letter appeared in the Seattle Times Sunday, trashing the Sonics, saying mean little things like, why should teams like our Portland Trailblazers have to play non-competitive teams like the Seattle subpar Sonics? The letter was signed Marshall Glickman Portland. Marshall is the vice president of the Blazers in charge of marketing. He says he didn't write the letter and that he has been framed.
And Wednesday. There are 3 teams which can break out their respective brooms and complete first-round sweeps of their opponents, including the Los Angeles Lakers.
Usually in the playoffs, one sees the emergence of at least one unsung star. Early returns indicate that this time it is Vlade time for the Los Angeles Lakers. Vlade Divac has helped the Lakers get up 2-0 on Houston by matching with the Rockets' big gun in the middle, Akeem Olajuwon, almost point for point and board for board with the multi-year All-Star. But it will take much more of the same for the Lakers to put the Rockets to sleep at their place.
The thing that Vlade has done for us is given us that real lift. You know, you need somebody to go out there and, by example, do it, and then all of a sudden everybody starts following.
I haven't seen him put 2 games back-to-back together like this all season long. And so he's playing well at the right time.
The Portland Trail Blazers can lay Seattle to rest with a win in the Emerald City. It's been somebody different carrying the freight the first 2 games. First night, Clyde Drexler. Second night, Danny Ainge. Tuesday night, who knows? The Blazers are capable of striking from many different directions. Chicago can turn the lights out on New York, but history provides a cure for any sense of bravado the Bulls may be entertaining. Only 3 teams have ever climbed out of a 2-0 hole to win a best-of-5. One of them, the Knicks, to beat Boston last year.
If we're going to lose this season, we're going to go down fighting. You know, we proved last year against Boston that, you know, it's possible. You know, we just got to take them one game at a time.
Hey, you'd be pretty loose, too, if you were the Philadelphia 76ers and you were heading back home to your building with a 2-0 lead over the Milwaukee Bucks. Remember, no team has ever come back from 2-0 after losing their first 2 games at home.
You have a team down, you want to try to take advantage of that. But we don't expect that it will come easy. You know, we'll have to play as well or better than we played in the first 2 games to get Game 3.
Another rough building awaits the Phoenix Suns, who head to Utah tied with the Jazz at a win apiece. And the Suns want us all to know that salt isn't necessarily hazardous to their postseason health.
We won 2 games over there last year in the playoffs, so we think we can go there and win. But I got to tell you, the Jazz are playing and playing well.
Dominique Wilkins and the Atlanta Hawks won 29 home games during the regular season, a franchise record 22 of them in a row. So the defending world champions from Detroit, hoping to let freedom ring, arrive in the Southland with a good, healthy respect for the task at hand, especially since the Hawks stole that first game at the Palace Friday, their first win over the Pistons anywhere all year long.
They're going to be pumped up, but the good thing about it is we know how to go out on the road and win. We know what type of intensity, what type of focus it takes to go out and win on the road.
Sherenas Marshallonis may be struggling with the English language, but he understands the gravity of the playoffs all right, averaging 17 points off the bench as the Golden State Warriors head home even with San Antonio. And Indiana played the perfect basketball game Sunday to beat the Celtics at the Garden for the 3rd time this year. Michael Williams didn't get many minutes with the Pistons, but he had a good view of Portland losing 3 straight at home to blow the title shot. And he's gotten his Indiana teammates' feet firmly back on the ground.
You know, Williams is another one of those unsung hero types. He has averaged 22 points and 8 assists in the first 2 games against Boston. But more important than that, I think, he's raising all kinds of cane in that modified 4-corner spread offense where he can just operate in the middle. And, of course, there's Chuck Person leading the playoff field with a 31 points per game average. And, you know, Hannah, he and Larry do like to have a conversation